Life is a zoo when you really think about it. We're all kind of just creatures and animals stuck in the zoo of life. And I've mentioned this before in certain videos, and I always get a comment that says, "Come on, dude, humans aren't animals." But humans are animals. Yes, there's more going on than just, I'm not like basing us down to just animalistic tendencies, and there's no spirituality, there's nothing else going on. But on a core level, we are animals. We are attached to everything that goes on in this world, whether it's the other animals or plants, the environment. A lot of people, when they say things like, "No, humans aren't animals. This is proven by science," or they come up with some reason, whether it's religion or science, that backs their statement of, "Oh no, we are not animals. We're above that." Well, look at like a dog, or a horse, or a lion, or a hippo, or anything really. Eyes, nose, mouth, ears, eats, goes to the bathroom, has sex, reproduces. What do we really do that's that different? We don't really, we don't do anything that's that different. And people say like, well, we can pave cement, and we can create phones, and so we're like this more intelligent species. But like, for a species that's supposedly more intelligent, why are we the biggest causes of like pollution and destruction of the environment? Animals, they kill other animals to like eat, or to protect their territory, or for mating. There's usually like some like reason for it. We're the only species that can purposely take like a wrapper and just throw it on the ground when we know there's a trash can right there. We're the only species that can create nuclear bombs and just drop them on other nations just because we wanted to, or just because for whatever reason. No other species does that. So when someone says, "Oh, well, we're the smart species, we're above that, we're not an animal," when you really look at it in human history, I mean, is that true? I think we are. I think there's a lot to learn from the other animals and from plants. And right now I'm selling tie-dye at the San Diego Zoo myself. And it's one of those things where we always, in school, we learn about like other animals, and we're always like, "Oh, well, here's the mating of this animal," or dissection in class or something. And we learn about how animals operate, and why they do the things they do. But we don't usually go over ourselves, right? There's no class in school that teaches us about ourselves, like us being a part of nature, and how we operate and how we think of things. Yeah, you have like the fifth grade sex education talk, but that's very basic, and that doesn't even scratch the surface. But like, it's huge irony. Like, we have a zoo here, and there's always the whole captivity versus not captivity thing. And I understand that. Like myself, I feel that we should go into an animal's environment and see the animal in that environment. But there are some positive things that a zoo does as well. But overall, I definitely favor going to the animal's environment and not keeping them in captivity. But going back to the point of this video, we learn a lot about other animals. Like, the zoo will give information about, like, here's where this species lives, and here's their lifestyle and their mating strategy, and information about that animal, or you read it in a textbook in a class. But we never learn about humans. We never learn about ourselves. Like, what about our own mating strategies? Going back to this red pill content, MGTOW, this is why a lot of this content, a lot of people don't take it well, is because it's talking about us. Like, how do we interact with each other? How do we interact, men and women? We hear a lot of times too, when we're talking about other animals, we talk about like the male of the species or the female of the species. But then when you talk about that with humans, like the male and the female, people think, "Oh, that's so derogatory to refer to it that way." Like, "Oh, a female," or "females." Like, how that's very derogatory to say that. It's like, no, it's informative, it's educational. Like, some of us are just more aware and more eager to learn things about ourselves and truth. And a lot of people shed those layers a lot quicker than others. So just because something makes you uncomfortable, or someone had a different opinion than you, it doesn't make it like derogatory, or the person hates women or hates men or whatever. It's just looking at life objectively. Just because we can take animals and put them in a zoo, we have the ability to put animals in captivity. It doesn't mean that we're separate from nature. So just because we put them in captivity and we study them, we learn about them, learn about the world, we can also learn about ourselves. What about the human animal, right? Like, what about our own mating strategies? What about the way we operate, the way we think, the way that we affect each other? the way that we interact with the opposite sex. So that's going back to content I've done on this channel and other Red Pill and MGTOW content. It's very important. It's important to understand yourself and why you think the things you do and why you do the things you do. So when it comes to this video, I thought it was the perfect time to do it because with this nonprofit that I sell the tie-dye for, this is one of my locations, the San Diego Zoo. I also sell in La Jolla Cove, Children's Pool in La Jolla, Pacific Beach, San Diego, and then downtown San Diego in certain spots like the Star of India, Seaport Village, the Midway aircraft carrier. So a couple different locations that we have with this organization around San Diego. And selling here at the zoo, I was thinking about this earlier, where it's like when we talk about Red Pill and MGTOW, a lot of times the reason people have a problem with that type of content is it because it looks at humans objectively. And a lot of people aren't used to doing that. A lot of people aren't used to just like looking in the mirror at themselves and like why they act the way they act. Like if we're going off of Red Pill philosophy and we notice intersexual dynamics of, say, like a woman getting older, there's a biological clock which affects her timeline and her choices and her decisions. So it's good to know that, so that you know, depending on the age of the woman, who you're dealing with, and like you can understand certain things about why she's acting the way she's acting. So when it comes to marriage, a topic that I've discussed a lot on this channel, you got to know the difference between a 20-year-old girl and a 30-year-old. And you know, don't just think that, oh, she's trying to get married now at 30, that like you found a wife that's going to work, it's compatible. If you had that Red Pill understanding and you understood human nature and female nature and understood us as animals, you would understand that there's a difference of fertility from age 20 to age 30 when it comes to the woman. So that's going to affect her decisions. That's going to affect what she's looking for at that given time. So if you are going to go the whole commitment route or have a kid or take care of a woman long term, it means a little more if she's giving you that commitment from like 18 to 22, like late teens, early 20s, as opposed to like 30 and 35. And I'm not saying that women just completely fall off a cliff and can't ever do anything getting older, but in terms of like expecting a man to provide something long term, if you weren't giving the man that commitment in your like sexual prime, you know, it's hard to convince him now that you've like hit the wall, and you know, whether it's the party years are over or you're done playing the field, sleeping around, or focusing on your career, your life, being a strong, independent woman, whatever that means to that particular woman. Just because it's the end of the line for those things, you can't just expect this guy at like 30 or 35 to just like want commitment now. And it happens, but a lot of times these guys just get kind of suckered into this beta male provider position where it's just kind of like the end of her rope, the end of her line, and she needs to find somebody because she has that timeline in a way that a man doesn't have the timeline. And from his end of the spectrum, if he hasn't had much experience with women himself, or maybe hasn't had many women that have been attracted to him, he gets in this situation from like 25 to 35 where he finally thinks he found the one, or like someone saw the light in him or the potential, but he's not really understanding of this red pill philosophy where she could have just been partying before, and now it's just like her time to needs to find somebody. So you're the guy that's kind of filling that role. And see, you don't want to be the backup plan. You don't want to be the beta backup, the beta provider. And that's something that you would understand more if you really just accepted that humans are animals and that we have animal tendencies in terms of attraction. And you can look at other species too, like when it comes to mating, if some offspring has like a birth defect and can't survive and keep up and put food on the table, the female of that species is going to mate with like the alpha, quote unquote, of that species, like the leader of the pack, like the strongest, the biggest, the one that can provide the most, the one with good genetics and bone structure, health. And so humans are like that. We have indicators of health. We have indicators of attraction and fertility. And so it's good to understand things like jawline theory and why like a man's jawline is an indicator to women in terms of mating, and your facial features, whether you have thin features or good proportions on your features, and your height and bone structure. your health conditions. Like, do you have any serious health problems, or are you a fairly healthy person with no complications? You don't get sick that often. I mean, these are just physical realities that we need to understand. So when you understand that humans are like anything else, like a dog, a cat, a lion, a wolf, a fish, like it's just a creature with eyes and a mouth and a nose, and eats, goes to the bathroom, reproduces. When you understand humans on that level, you can use that knowledge to help you in many areas of your life when it comes to men and women and dating and marriage interactions and sexual relationships. It'll help you more when you understand that red pill knowledge, because like I'm saying, like here selling at the San Diego Zoo, we have this tendency to like, oh, we learned about this species, or like we open up a textbook in school, let's learn about African animals, let's learn about South American animals, let's learn about why this animal eats this type of food and lives in this climate, and this animal has claws for this, and this animal can climb, and this animal stores things for winter, and this one goes into hibernation, this one is just really fast. Like, so we're always learning about other animals, but when it comes to learning about ourselves, the room gets awkward. It gets all silent, and people don't want to learn ourselves, right? It's always like, when it comes to like looking ourselves in the mirror and actually learning things, people have a problem with that. So it's easier for a lot of people to just go through the motions and accept things and not look inward, because it takes a certain place in your maturity to go over those questions. But the sooner that you get to that place, the easier it'll be when you stop thinking that we're so separate from things. Like, yeah, we can put animals in this zoo, in the San Diego Zoo right here, but I'm a creature that eats and goes to the bathroom and can reproduce and have a kid myself. Like, I'm a species. I'm an animal. I'm part of what's going on in the trees and the plants and everything. So if I'm not aware of that stuff, I'm going to get screwed over in the long term, because if you're not aware of that knowledge, you don't know how you're playing out in scenarios with other people. And if you don't know that, you're not going to know how you're perceived by other people, perceived by women. And if you don't know how you're perceived by women, how's it going to work, right? You're going to get in situations that aren't good if you have no understanding of that stuff. The jawline theory, the height, the bone structure, the amount of money you make, actually knowing what you provide. So, like, it's good to understand that animal nature within us, because like, if you have a bunch of money, you got to know that money can provide food and shelter and resources. So you got to know how people are around you are acting when you have that money, right? You can't be clueless. It's the same thing with like your attraction and certain parts of your circumstance. You got to be aware of that stuff. So like, even learning about animals here at the zoo, like you look at like a peacock or something that uses its bright colors and its feathers. Like, the male peacock will use that to attract the females. And it's funny, I'm selling bright tie-dye shirts here, and I'm mixed race. I have green eyes. I have a modeling contract here in San Diego, so it's just like using like the tie-dye. It just like, you have a bunch of like bright colors, and then women come up all the time and they're like, this is awesome, you should keep doing this job, or like, awesome shirts. And they are awesome shirts, but when you're tapped into that red pill knowledge, you can see more of the humor behind it. It's just like, here, like a mixed race guy with green eyes, come buy my shirts, they're nice and bright and shiny. And it's just like, I mean, I'm not saying that that's like my sole intention on it, but it is funny. I'm aware of that kind of stuff. Like, not every person has the ability to pull off what another person can pull off. Like, if a guy was doing this job and he was seen as objectively unattractive, certain things he does and says might come off as creepy. It's like in the workplace now with the feminist society and the way things are, if a guy that she doesn't think is attractive goes up to her and says, oh, like, you're really cute, want to get a bite to eat after work, she can just call a supervisor and say, oh, it's workplace harassment, or he's coming on to me, or whatever. And I've mentioned this in a video before too. I was working this job, and this guy, he told me that at his work that happened, where he got a write-up for flirting at work. And me selling tie-dye around San Diego, I can assure you that I've never been written up for flirting. Like, that has not happened in my circumstance. But see, if the guy, if she considers to her the guy's like unattractive and he asks her out, that could be her way to just put an end to it. Like, oh, he's coming on to me to tell a supervisor, even though it's just like, just take the compliment. He was interested in you. You're a pretty girl. Like, don't go to workplace harassment. Because if the guy was attractive to her, she would have just like gone out to eat with him after work. And I mean, that happens. So again, back to this red pill awareness and this knowledge, have an understanding of how you're perceived in the game. How are you perceived with your finances and your looks and your attraction and your sexual attraction to the opposite sex? So it's not always about learning the other animals. It's not always about learning the other plants. Sometimes it's learning about us. We tend to get away from those conversations. We tend to not take those conversations very seriously. We want to always look at something else, whether it's getting distracted with movies or television or just something else that's kind of outside of you. Like we're always focused on something that's outside of us, and we rarely take the opportunity to look within ourselves and to meditate and to have time alone to reflect on our place in the world and our place in the game and how we can maneuver and operate going forward. But it's important to know. It's important to not just think that just because you're at the zoo, we don't just have to learn about other animals and other plants. We can learn about ourselves once in a while too. We're a part of it. We're a part of everything that's going on. This is the zoo. Like, just because we can put up a cage or a fence and call that the zoo doesn't mean that we're separate from the zoo. This anywhere you go, like the roads you're walking on, if you go off-roading, you go to the mountains, go to the desert, go to a different country, this is all the zoo. Like, we're all in the same world together, no matter what constraints we put up and labels we attach to things. So it's good to understand that. It's good to understand your part in it and your place in everything, because the sooner that you're red pill aware and that you understand biological realities, the more you can use that to benefit your life long term.